Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. How's it going? What are we getting into today? What kind of malice you going to be yapping at me about today?
I'm going to yap some malice at you.
Yeah, you always do. So, how bad is it going to be? No kids, huh? No kids?
No kids. No
Okay,
kids.
Good. It's a holiday.
Good,
we don't want to do kids today.
Not today. All right, so let me tell you a thing or two about a thing or two. I had a listener reach out to me, and she said that there's a story of a young man's death that just never felt right to her. A death that police have ruled a drowning. Nothing further, no more, no less. But the circumstances just don't fit. And I have to tell you, I'm with her. Something is not right. And not by a long shot. The more I looked into it, the more sus it is. Not only does this young man's death not make any sense, there is a whole lot more to the story. So thank you, Heather May. Thank you. Let's see how far the story can reach, and let's see if something can get done about it. So let's get into it. This is Season 7, Episode 10, Todd, Geib, and the Smiley Face Killers. When I started searching the name Todd Geib, I found way more than I bargained for. Everywhere I looked, Todd seemed to be connected to other men close in age, physique, athleticism, intelligence, manner of death, case closed. Todd lived in the Mitten in the Muskegon area. The other men are not, but as I move through their stories, I'll let you decide. Were these men tied to the Smiley Face Killers? Do you think these are singular incidents or just mere coincidence? Now, I'll prime the pump now and tell you that this is going to be the first story of the 6 men believed to be connected to the Smiley Face Killers. We got a little mini-sode coming up.
All right. Well, here we go.
Yep.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. All right, my main source for the show comes from the true crime series on Oxygen called Smiley Face Murders, The Hunt for Justice. Now, I have a tender spot in my heart for detectives who roll up their sleeves and are relentless in their pursuit for justice, not only for the victims, but for the families as well. The main characters in this true crime series is comprised of 4 men, 3 of which are retired detectives from the Bronx, and one who holds a PhD in criminal justice. He is a professor at St. Cloud State University, where he teaches criminal justice and is a gang expert. Now, I think it's important to define gang before we move on, so quote, "A gang is a group or society of associates, friends, or members of a family with a defined leadership and internal organization that identifies with or claims control over territory in a community and engages either individually or collectively in illegal and possibly violent behavior, with such behavior often constituting a form of organized crime." So let me introduce you to these amazing men.
You should also say AKA Banditos.
AKA Banditos. Detective Kevin Gannon spent 20 years on the NYPD out of the Bronx. He is the lead investigator in the Smiley Face Killer Task Force that he's put together. He has been working cases related to the Smiley Face Killers for 12 years, and he believes that the cases I'm going to present to you are all intertwined. So, What's the deal with the term smiley face killers? Well, the book that Kevin wrote is called Case Studies in Drowning Forensics. Quote, at least 45 young men have been found in bodies of water across several Mideastern states from the late 1990s through 2010, did not accidentally drown as concluded by law enforcement agencies, but instead were victims of one or multiple serial killers. Detective Anthony Duarte and Detective Mike Donovan also retired from the NYPD in the Bronx. And finally, Professor Lee Doc Gilbertson. He said, quote, it's the injustice to the murdered victims' families that really pisses me off. Well, me too, Doc. Me too. For each case that these men investigate, they meet up at a local diner or restaurant as Kevin lays out the case. From there, it's go time for this team to dive into the case and see if there is more to the deaths than what's on the death certificate. Todd's case, as well as the other men I'm going to tell you about, all had their cases reported as missing for days, and in some cases, weeks before their bodies are found in bodies of water. Once the bodies were found, minimal investigation occurred. All of these cases were ruled as drownings, case closed. Could the problem be that these cases were never turned over to the homicide unit because they were in the missing persons division? The missing person is found, conclusions drawn, and that's the end of it because the men are no longer missing. That's something to think about. Todd Geib's case will be the first one that we will talk about. It's summertime in the Mitten, June 11th, 2005. Todd was 22 years old when he attended a bonfire party in an apple orchard with friends. You know, a typical summertime kegger. While at the party, Todd was seen drinking beer, but people said that Todd wasn't intoxicated, according to people that were at the bonfire. It was about midnight when he said his goodbyes and left on foot to walk home. Now, this was the last time Todd was seen alive. He never made it home, and no one had a clue about what had happened to him. It was just about 1 o'clock in the morning on June 12th that Todd called a friend from his cell phone. And this is what she heard. I'm in a field. I'm in a field. And then, nothing. She called back. He answered, but this time he wasn't talking at all. What she heard was either Todd breathing heavy or wind blowing. Then, nothing. 21 days after Todd was last seen at the party in the orchard, Jim Wilde and his wife, who own a piece of property that included Ovid Hall Lake, decided that they were going to head out to their property for a relaxing walk along the lake. As they were walking, Jim's wife was looking out over the lake, pointed and said, "Hey, look, there's a beaver." But when Jim looked in the direction his wife was pointing to, he took a good long look, then said, quote, "That beaver's not moving." Jim knew about Todd, and he knew that he was still missing. As they got closer, they knew it was not a beaver and placed a call to the local police department. Now here's the bizarre part. Todd's body wasn't floating the way you may think he would have been. He was found to be floating upright, as if standing up. Jim described it like this, quote, "He looked like he was standing, his left arm out and bent in front of him, head down, head and shoulders were above the water." Jim also told police that his brother and his son had been fishing on this lake all day until 9 p.m. the night before he and his wife spotted Todd's body. His brother and son had fished around the entire perimeter of the lake that day and into the night because, well, that's just how you fish on this lake. Todd's body was not there. He also told police that when he went down to get into his canoe to get a closer look at what was in the water, that his canoe, where it should have been, where it always was, securely tied to the dock, was not there. Jim's eyes searched the lake for his canoe, and he spotted it, but it was on the opposite side of the lake. He found that pretty strange. When they got to it, it was full of beer cans. Now, there is no mention of police investigating or swabbing the contents in the canoe or the canoe itself, and I find that absolutely just jaw-dropping. Really, guys? Why would you not do that? The end result of the investigation, it was hypothesized that Todd was drunk. He walked into or fell into the lake and drowned. Now, here's what the autopsy report reveals. Now, I'm going to read this off the report. Date of autopsy, July 3rd, 2005. 1. Autopsy findings. A. Drowning. B. No other cause of death. C. Post-mortem blood ethanol at 0.12%. Now, this equals, some problems with judgment and moving properly, meaning you're less sharp and will have slower reaction time. 2. Intermediate decomposition of the body. 3. Post-mortem blood drug screen. A. Desipyramine, 495 nanograms per ml. Now, this is a tricyclic antidepressant. B. Amitriptyline, 51 nanograms per ml. This is also a tricyclic antidepressant. And codenine, confirmed. Now, this is a metabolite found in the body when nicotine is broken down. So perhaps Todd was a smoker. Cause of death, drowning. The manner of death is undetermined because there is very little known information about why the decedent was in the water or how he got into the water. Should more information regarding these circumstances become available, this manner of death can be revised. The autopsy report does not list any findings of insects in or on Todd's body. There is no mention of the color of Todd's skin or that there is a high level of decomposition. If Todd's body was in that lake in the summertime for 21 days, as police say he was, there would not be much left of him, period. Todd's mother, Kathy, received Todd's articles of clothing from the police, clothing that he wore the night he went to the party in the orchard, clothing that he was wearing when his body was recovered from Ovid Hall Lake. Those articles were a t-shirt, a pair of jeans, still with a belt in the loops of the jeans, and one boot that to me kind of looked like a Timberland boot shoe, like a, Timberland work boots, but shoe, didn't have the upper portion of the work boot. Todd's mother held on to these items for 13 years at this point. She knew in her heart that Todd didn't just walk into the lake or fall into the lake and drown from intoxication. He could hold his beer. None of this made any sense to her, but she was at a dead end. Until one day when she was reading an article in a magazine about Detective Gannon and his research into the Smiley face killers. Well, she couldn't believe what she was reading. The cases that Gannon and his team were investigating were so similar to what had happened to her son. She had reached out to Gannon, and he agreed that he would look into what happened to her son. Now, it wasn't long after she had contacted Gannon that she had found a smiley face sticker on Todd's headstone. And when she and her family had gone back out to Ovidhall Lake and they were near the location, kind of looking around, as they did kind of sounds like frequently, where her son's body was found, she saw something that she had missed before. And she just couldn't believe that she had never seen it. But there it was, on a tree, a spray-painted smiley face. You see, this seems to be the hallmark of the smiley face killers from Gannon and his team's research. A spray-painted smiley face is found not far from where the victim's body is found in a body of water. Todd's mother wants justice for her son, and she would do whatever it took to get it. In full cooperation with Gannon's team, she handed over Todd's clothes. When Kathy gave Todd's clothes to Gannon, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. She had not washed his clothes when she received them. She folded them and stored them. They barely looked dirty. Gannon and Doc took Todd's clothes to MSU's entomology department to speak with forensic biologist Dr. M. Eric Benbow. After speaking with the team, he agreed to view the autopsy pictures of Todd. As soon as he looked at them, he immediately had an interesting look on his face. Dr. Benbow said, quote,
"In these types of cases, there are always insects in the autopsy report."
Gannon and Doc said that the autopsy report had no mention of any insects, sand, or debris. Dr. Benbow also said, quote,
"What's interesting is that as I'm looking at the algae on the clothing, it's long filamentous algae. And what I can't tell is if there is any algous biofilm. The clothing looks fairly clean."
Now, what he's referring to is basically an algae slime. Quote,
"If Todd's body was in the lake for 21 days, I would imagine there would be more slime."
Regarding Todd's head and shoulders being exposed above the water, he said, quote,
"There should be insects on his clothing, in his mouth, ears, and skin folds. Flies are attracted to things like this in as fast as minutes."
According to his studies as an entomologist, carcasses are consumed quickly and quite dramatically. Entomology is the study of bugs and is an excellent tool in determining how long a person has been deceased. Dr. Benbow agreed to do a site visit to the lake where Todd was found with Gannon and Doc, and this would give him a better understanding of the ecology of the lake where Todd's body was found. Once at the lake, waders on, Dr. Benbow hopped right into that water. There were lily pads and floating moss. He immediately scooped up a fistful and quickly plucked out an insect. Quote,
"So, damselflies. This is an indication that they're here. If they're in here, they're predators, which indicates that there's a lot of prey. If a body was in here, it would be colonized with some kind of aquatic insects."
When Benbow was asked by the team, how would one go about testing how a body decomposes in the water to determine if Todd was or was not in the water for 3 weeks, he replied,
"Ideally, of course, you'd want to test this with human bodies, but the alternative would be to use swine carcasses. They are most similar to how they decompose to a human. Their skin is very similar. You'd have to put clothing on the swine that the victim was wearing as well. This test would give you the biofoam or slime that would develop over the course of 3 weeks, as well as the insect colonization."
Dr. Benbow had agreed to conduct the experiment with his students. While the study was in progress, Detectives then met up with a man named Dennis Carlson. Now, he owned the piece of property and the orchard where the bonfire party was that night Todd attended in June of 2005. It was a party thrown by one of his boys, and he confirmed that there were a lot of kids there that night. As they were speaking with Carl had pointed in the direction of the lake where Todd was found. Now, this was just beyond the orchard. He also said that if someone were to walk in that direction, they could get to the lake, but it was very overgrown with pricker bushes that had barbs approximately 2 inches long. A person would have stabs and cuts all over their body if anyone tried to get through those bushes. And let's be mindful that Todd's body had no such marks on it. Carl also pointed in the opposite direction of the lake to the detectives, and he said, quote,
"Over there on Half Moon Road is where Todd's house is. Now, I will tell you that when Todd disappeared, police and search dogs were here on my property. The dogs picked up Todd's scent, and it was not in the direction of the lake."
Todd's scent went away from the orchard down a long 2-track driveway. Now, a 2-track driveway is basically, there's nothing paved, and it's 2 tracks that are made from cars in and out, in and out, in and out. That's a 2-track driveway. Once at the end of the driveway, taking a left on the dirt road, approximately a half mile down that dirt road, and just before Highway 37, which is where at the end of the dirt road from the orchard, Todd would have had to have turned right down Half Moon Road, which is also a dirt road. He was never on Half Moon. The dogs lost his scent right there where he would have had to have made a right turn. It was just like he had vanished out of thin air. Regarding the post-mortem toxicology screen, the detectives met with a pharmacist to figure out what the drugs were in Todd's system. Well, as I mentioned earlier when I read the autopsy report, there were 2 types of the same type of antidepressant found. Now, these both require prescription. Todd wasn't depressed, and he did not have a prescription for these medications. Detectives learned that a person would never be prescribed 2 of the same class of antidepressants together either. When asked about the amount of medication that was in Todd's system, they wanted to know what that person would exhibit, like what would their behavior look like. The pharmacist informed them that the amount of medication found in Todd's body, he would have increased side effects such as increased hallucinations, confusion, and agitation. Also, that these are not party drugs. These drugs could be crushed, put in a drink, and within an hour, the side effects would be felt. Again, those are confusion, hallucinations, cardiac arrest, coma, and even seizures. Now that Dr. Benbow and his students had completed their swine experiment, it was time to learn how all that went. Dr. Benbow explained to Gannon and Doc that a total of 5 swine carcasses were used in the experiment. All were placed in an experimental pond that closely resembled the conditions of the area of Ovid Hall Lake where Todd's body was in during the hot summer. 3 swines were sampled every other day, and the other 2 were left alone for 21 days with 24-hour surveillance video recording. Now, here are those findings. Day 1, bloating and aquatic insects present. Day 3, insect eggs were collected. There were insects all over the extremely bloated and floating swine. Day 21. Now, there was a time-lapsed video that Gannon and Doc watched, and it blew my freaking mind. Now, I sent that to you, Christine. Did you ever watch it?
Yes, I did. And that was crazy to watch that just disintegrate like that in fast loop.
Yeah, I was blown away. I had no idea. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Now,
I mean, like, knew it happened, but I don't think I've ever seen it happen like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I learned about it, you know?
mm-hmm.
To watch it happen is crazy bananas. And then to see those, you know, the scientists and the kids that are doing mortuary science wading through the water that had all that in it, I was like, oh.
I know, me too. I was like, oh, that's gotta...
Because I'm imagining the smell. And then none of them were wearing masks. That is what kind of threw me for the biggest loop of that whole video. Because I was like, none of them are wearing masks.
Right.
That smell at all. They're just chilling in it. Ugh.
They're all up in it. And you know what else I found interesting too was I'm like, they were all kind of like grinning because to them, they're performing a science experiment, right? Like, aha, like, oh.
Get out. They're super into it.
Yeah.
You can see it, but at the same time, I'm just thinking about how horrid and putrid that probably smelled.
Thank God for them because I could not do that job. Nope.
Yeah, no, not me. Right. That's why all kinds of us.
Takes all kinds to make up the fabric. I love it. All right, so the swine was dressed in Todd's clothes. So there were thousands, and near the end, I'm guessing millions of maggots in and on Todd's body. The skin looked like it was just disintegrating. To me, when I watched the time-lapse video, it looked like millions of maggots just exploded out of the carcass, and foam was exploding out and away from the body of the swine. The clothes were covered in a green, foaming slime. Now that's important to remember, that Todd's body had none of this. No slime, no insects, no bloating. This was to the detectives definitive proof that there was no way Todd could have been in the water of the lake for even a week, let alone 21 days. Dr. Benbow also said, when asked,
it's most improbable that Todd was in the water for that length of time.
He also agreed to write up a scientific document stating his findings from the experiment and provide that to Gannon and his team. At this point, at the very least, the detectives felt that they had enough proof to show that this was not a simple drowning as the police and the autopsy report said it was. This should be more than enough evidence to at least change the autopsy findings and death certificate to homicide. With all of their research completed, it was time to visit Kathy and present all of their findings. Kathy confirmed that Todd was not taking antidepressants and was hopeful once again that this may be what it takes to reopen her son's case. As Gannon and Kathy were headed to the Rockford Post Police Department to present their research, Kathy said, quote,
"Women understand that as a mother, you will never stop. And I think he would have hated it that this has consumed my life. The last card I got from him was on Mother's Day, a month before he died. And it said, 'Thanks, Mom. You've always had my back.'"
Gannon and Kathy presented their scientific-backed research. After that, Kathy was granted a meeting with the Muskegon County prosecutor. The prosecutor requested the full analysis from Dr. Benbow and is currently reviewing everything. Now, as of February 22nd, 2019, the prosecutor was considering reclassifying Todd's death as a homicide. Now, 2019 is when the filming of Todd's episode aired on Oxygen's True Crime. There is also a Facebook page that Kathy had created for her son. It's called Reopen Todd Geib's Case. The last entry was on June 19th, 2024. And guess what? To this day, his case has still not been reopened or reclassified. There are so many people that have commented, giving their support and love to Kathy and her family on their Facebook page, and I loved reading them. Kathy's last post says this, quote,
I have just noticed how many of my posts on this page have been erased. Very strange. This is a private page. They are erasing anything I post.
Now, I am absolutely disgusted that nothing has been done. Why hasn't this been reclassified with all of the scientific research that had been presented to them? Kathy told Gannon that after all this time, quote,
I am worried that people will lose track of who Todd was. He was fun-loving, athletic. He loved his family. He was a real family guy. I miss my son walking in the door and saying, hey, Ma. It's small moments like this that we all take for granted until one day you don't hear it anymore. God gives you a numbness that gets you through what you have to get through. But the pain has no words. It's like if you sawed off all of my limbs, I don't think it could be more pain than my heart feels.
Kathy went on to say that one day this case will be solved, quote,
what was done in the darkness will come to light.
Now, I wish this too, Kathy. To me, in my opinion, it's clear that this was not a man who was so inebriated that he stumbled through a heavy thicket of pricker bushes and fell into a lake and drowned. As a mother myself, the thought of what Kathy and her family have endured all these years is a downright dirty shame. Todd deserves justice. Why hasn't the manner of death been changed? And why has there been no further investigation into his murder? And yes, I'm calling it murder. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I don't know. I don't understand why they're not reopening the case. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And, I sit there and I think, okay, Muskegon, this is pretty rural. You know what I mean? Is it that they just don't have the money to do it? But, they are not doing their due diligence. They are not doing their job. These detectives did all the legwork. They did all the legwork. Wrapped it up in a pretty little package and gave it to them.
Yeah, so of course, because we talk about these things, my brain goes to the sus portions of it. Like, does somebody know more and somebody else is connected that they're covering for? Or do they just really not have anything else? Like, they have nowhere else to go with it, so it's a dead end. So, but because it's a dead end, that doesn't still... Even if they know there's a dead end and they can't get any further with it, that's still not a reason to not reopen the case. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, leave it open as unsolved, not even a case. I don't even know. I'm not doing that justice. I don't even know how to formulate my words to, it's obviously murder, so why are you still classifying it as a drowning?
Right. And even, the physician that performed the autopsy, give that dude the results of all the studies that have been done, the scientific studies that have been done, the information that they learned from the pharmacist, that Todd was not depressed, Todd didn't have a prescription. Where did these freaking drugs come from? They're not party drugs. Why is it that that information hadn't been turned over to the physician that did the autopsy so he could update his report and also update the death certificate? It's a fucking shame. It makes no sense.
It is, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So what do all of you think about Todd's story? Do you think that he was in the lake for 21 days? Do you think that there is something more nefarious here? Stay tuned for the upcoming shows so you can, for yourself, see if you all think that these stories are connected and could possibly be the work of the Smiley Face Killers. So, thank you, everyone. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, please give us a like and a share and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you back on Wednesday for Round Robin.
And happy holiday!
Happy Memorial Weekend.
Yeah, well, it's the end of it now. It's Monday.
It's Monday. But still,
happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day, everyone. All right. Bye.
Bye.